Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Roberto Corona. I'm an Italian anthroposopher and astrologer. And in this video, we're going to talk about the upcoming new moon in Libra on October 21st, a moon that closely involves the Interstellar Comet 3I Atlas, which will be perfectly aligned with the sun and the moon during the next new moon. Now, this is the first new moon of fall, which will hopefully brings us new impulses to action inspired by the image of Archangel Michael, who according to anthroposophy rules the fall season and can help us to successfully go through the darkness of fall. So let's start by talking about Comet 3I Atlas, which is technically speaking a non-periodic comet, also cataloged as C2025N1 Atlas. Now, non-periodic comets, according to Rudolf Steiner's spiritual science, are celestial bodies ruled by the first spiritual hierarchy, specifically the cherubim and seraphim, whose task is to accumulate negative astral energy from our solar system in order to expel it and facilitate our progress. But in this case, however, what's special about Comet 3I Atlas is that it is an interstellar comet, meaning that it comes from another star system. Now, my personal interpretation about this is that it is indeed a messenger comet capable of bringing in a new spiritual impulse to our solar system for evolutionary purposes specifically. Now, this conclusion is based on the fact that, according to anthroposophy, the seraphim are the highest spiritual hierarchies and have the task of establishing communication, connection, and relationships between different star systems. For this reason, an interstellar comet, which is in fact guided by the seraphim, could perform precisely this function. However, why still do I suggest that it could be a messenger that carries an impulse for evolutionary purposes specifically? To answer this question, I checked the position of the comet at the time of its discovery. In fact, the moment humanity enters into a conscious relationship with a celestial body, this gives us clues as to its purpose, for example. And the comet was discovered on July 1st, 2025, when it was in the constellation of Sagittarius, indicated here by the red arrow on the screen. Whereas in yellow, you can see the tropical zodiac signs with, for example, Capricorn, and on the background, the constellation of Sagittarius. So what's interesting about the constellation of Sagittarius is that it is a constellation directly linked to the evolutionary laws of our solar system. In fact, the figure of the centaur sees a human figure emancipating itself from an animal figure, the horse, and rising upward, right? Shooting an arrow towards the sun, towards the spirit. And this is also true on a stellar level, because this image is confirmed by the fact that the Centaur constellation shoots an arrow toward the center of our galaxy, the so-called galactic center, which you can see here indicated by this white arrow. Now, this means that we can reasonably assume that the interstellar comet is bringing a message, an impulse coming from another star system, capable of assisting the overall evolution of our solar system and therefore of humanity. Unfortunately, this is also a sign that things are not going well at all, and that humanity, human evolution in general, needed an important contribution, considerable help, I would say. So we want to keep this in mind, that we need help, and this is not something good because things are not going well, so we need it. Here instead you can see the position of the comet, always indicated by the red arrow, for October 21, which is the date of the new moon in Libra, and we're going to talk about precisely of this. And as you can see, the comet, the sun and the moon are perfectly aligned at almost the same degree of ecliptic longitude, meaning in regards to the zodiac. In fact, the comet is at 27 degrees and 52 minutes Libra, whereas the new moon is at 28 and 21 minutes Libra, less than 1 degree away. Now, by the way, even in terms of latitude, I would say we're good because, as you can see, the comet is very close to the ecliptic, so we don't have the comet like up in the sky, but it's very, very close to the sun. Okay, moving on to the chart of the new moon in Libra, let's start as always with the latest changes in the sky, because in addition to the arrival of the interstellar comet, on October 14, Venus enters Libra, her diurnal domicile, whereas on the same day, Pluto turns direct, giving a Plutonian boost to the new moon chart, and we're going to see there's a square with the moon, so it is definitely on point. In addition to that, we know that on October 22nd, so the day following the new moon, we have Neptune temporarily moving back to Pisces, and Neptune is going to stay there throughout all fall until January 26, 2026, when it will get back to Aries. Now, in general, this moon leads us towards Halloween, All Saints' Eve, and to the Festival of the Dead, which we can understand nowadays as the celebration of people who have crossed the threshold of the spiritual worlds, whether alive, such as the saints or the initiates, or dead, like everyone else, right? So in this sense, the saints for us can be understood as the great initiates, those we consider our spiritual teachers, and this is a great opportunity to celebrate them. So we want to keep on the background this festival as well. Now, in general, this is a new moon, meaning it represents, as always, the beginning of a process, right? We have this manifestation process starting. So we have this cosmic seed growing and expanding as the full moon grows. And the next full moon is going to happen on November 5, and it is going to be a full moon in Taurus. So let's take a look at the chart. We have the sun and the moon located at 28 degrees and 21 minutes Libra in the stereo image of the Virgin, up here, as we said, together with Comet 3i Atlas. And being in Libra, the new moon, of course, is ruled by the Lady of Libra, which is Venus, that, as we said, here she is, entered her own sign on October 14. It is a beautiful Venus, very strong in her domicile. However, Venus is in conjunction with the star Vindemiatrix, also called the Widow Star, which point us to some challenges. Now, this is Vindemiatrix here, is a star that the Virgin is holding in her hand. Now, on top of that, the luminaries, as you can see, are also making two squares, one with Pluto and the other one with Jupiter. So there's definitely a lot of tension in the sky. But in turn, Jupiter, as you can see, open up the chart to this main planetary configuration that we can see here. We have a grand trine of water, this big triangle here involving planets in water signs. So we have Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, and this conjunction that is a Mars-Mercury conjunction. This is very interesting because if you remember, during the last full moon in the chart of the last syzygy featured this conjunction. It was a wide conjunction between Mars and Mercury, nevertheless an applying conjunction, which is here, as you can see, fully realized, especially because Mars and Mercury are both at 20 degrees Scorpio. So let's tackle the meanings of the chart. Let's start from the physical meanings. As we are all witnessing, the fundamental theme lately seems to be that of agreements, also international agreements, the peace for Gaza, and so on. This is because Libra is the zodiac sign of harmony, of law, international law, and justice. So Venus in Libra is very favorable in general to all initiatives that seek to bring balance, being reasonable, bringing respect between the parties, and so on. We have this harmonious effect. However, this Venus carries within herself the sign of an evident wound, I would say, namely the conjunction with the star of Indemiatrix, the star of the widow. So it is a strong and good Venus, yes, but she carries within herself the wound, the trauma of loss, and could, for this reason, suggest that these agreements can be quite unstable, especially because this star can lead to misfortunes. It has the nature of Saturn as well. I am specifically talking about the nature of the star. According to Ptolemy, Indemiatrix has the star of both Mercury and Saturn is what makes the star challenging. So in general, it is advisable to act with respect for the pain and suffering of others as we are trying to reach a compromise with these agreements. In fact, they can be very, very tense because of the two squares. So on the one hand, we have the square with Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto in Aquarius represents a group of people, or the peoples in general, that are ready for rebellion, for the revolution, because Pluto is in the zodiac sign of the revolution, Aquarius. On the other hand, we have the square with Jupiter in Cancer that represents personal interests related to private property, our house, our land, and even our country. Now, in particular, these Jupiterian interests, they trigger a grand trine of water. So this grand trine, and in particular, they trigger Mars and Mercury. This is a super strong Mars. Mars in Scorpio is in domicile. And this conjunction is all about secret deals or financial intrigues, which could lead to exploiting the situation. So all this is not necessarily in favor of Venus in Libra. It is not necessarily in favor of this widow, which is an image representing people that have lost so much. So this is an unstable situation. So we really need to respect other people's suffering in order to make this deal a real deal. Moving on to the psychological meanings of the chart, we change subject completely. In fact, with Venus in Libra, the chart is all about issues concerning romantic relationships, as well as friendship. Why not? Friendship is a form of love, right? So the tensions represented by Pluto and Jupiter, in this case, concern the involvement of other people, groups of people to which we may belong, such as our family, but also groups we belong for idealistic reasons, because with Jupiter in Cancer, of course, we have our family, but with Pluto in Aquarius, we are talking about people we work with for an idealistic purpose of some kind. Now, these groups, they, in a way or in another, they undermine the foundations of a heartfelt relationship of some kind. So here, the celestial scripture highlights also these communications, discussions that are going on in secret, if not even behind our back. This is because Mars and Mercury in Scorpio, they represent that. They represent people talking in secret, right? So in general, I would say the advice here would be not to make hasty decisions and to just observe what is happening, taking our time, especially because this is a new moon. So there is little light in the sky. So we are not yet able to fully understand, to fully grasp the situation. On top of that, waiting in silence is also a virtue that we can cultivate, right? So we can take advantage of this moon to nurture this, this virtue of waiting, so patience, and also observing objectively what's going on. And lastly, from a spiritual perspective, we have already spoken, of course, about the comet, which occurs during a new moon falling in the starry image of the Virgin up here. So as I always try to remember, right, to repeat, in astrosophy, this is one of the constellations of humanity. And on top of that, we have the involvement of one of its major stars, which is Vindemiatrix. Now, Vindemiatrix also means the grape harvester, and this is very interesting because together we have two stars, one of each hand of the Virgin. So in one hand, the Virgin holds the ear of wheat, star Spica, which represents bread, right? And in the other, we have the grape harvest star, which represents wine. So we have a Eucharistic image here, but in particular with star Vindemiatrix, we have the image of the blood of Christ. Now, this indicates the fact that our losses are not in vain, but can become forms of karmic sacrifice we accepted in the spiritual worlds to undergo because ultimately they can lead us toward a form of spiritual evolution. So we have evolution through sacrifice, right? An evolution that specifically in this chart opens up to a new impulse that is coming from another star system, and that allows humanity to rise. And so we have, during the discovery of the star, we have the Centaur, right? We have the constellation of the Sagittarius, the Centaur emancipating himself from the animal nature, reaching upward towards the sun. In the same way, we can free ourselves from our lower impulses, transforming them, not denying them, but transforming them through the forces of Christ, which in their essence are, I would say, the heart of an alchemical process. So a transformation process. We want to transform our instincts, not denying them, right? As always, thanks for watching. If you want to support my work, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell not to miss out on future astrological insights. I am Roberto Corona. See you in the next video.